At time of writing, normality is yet to be restored, meaning that after I released my review of 2019, pickings were very slim, and there was only so much that documenting the healing process of my quarantine-induced friction burns could contribute to filling the creative void, so here we are. So why Sonic? Well, I wanted to draw the characters in the name of a challenge, and I also really like Jim Carrey. That's it. There was literally no other reason. I didn't throw random film reel fodder into a hat and the powers that be chose Sonic the Hedgehog to be put under my magnifying glass of limited mercy. I definitely don't qualify as a hardcore fan either. I, at best, have tangential affiliation with the franchise. Played a bit of Sonic 2 on the Mega Drive back in the day. I own a pair of lounge pants that have the Hedgehog's face all over them, and I'm currently ploughing through adventure mode on Team Sonic Racing because I got drunk and bought it that one time. To my detriment, because even if our team is occupying all of the podium positions, not one race passes by without Tails performing some sort of treason that was so severe he probably had to snort 30 pieces of silver just to get the Judas juices flowing intensely enough for him to sabotage his own fucking team's stats, but I digress. Sonic is a wanted hedgehog on his home planet, and whilst being chased by the locals, his protector gives him a sack of magic rings, which, unlike the games, aren't attributed to his power or health, at least for now. In this version of the Sonic lore, they're used as portals that can teleport you to other worlds. Our protagonist uses one of these rings to escape the chase and winds up on Earth. Several years pass and he has kept himself relatively under the radar until one day the loneliness finally gets the better of him, which causes an EMP leading to a power blackout over a noticeable chunk of the United States. Obviously their government gets wind of this and hires psycho genius Dr. Robotnik to root out the source of the electromagnetic disturbance. In a perfect world, Sonic would abandon ship the moment Robotnik was getting too close. There would be an adorable sequence of him in his new home. All is well until a mid or post-credit scene showing Robotnik has somehow discovered the location of the planet Sonic has escaped to, as we zoom out to see that he has also constructed an extremely heavy implication of a sequel. This of course is a thing that future me can worry about because current me is occupied with my side project, which, by the way, Netflix, you're still yet to give the go-ahead. Stop ignoring the demands of the masses and pick up the easy money. Annoyingly, this wasn't how it unfolded. Sonic spent his formative years on Earth stalking Tom Wachowski, who in my opinion is a frontrunner for Mr. Generic 2020. At a moment early on in the movie, Sonic was indeed on the cusp of immigrating to a different planet, but because there was still a runtime to fulfill, he was interrupted, then subsequently tranquilized by a startled Generic, and his sack of rings ended up on the Transamerica Pyramid in San Francisco. No biggie considering the Hedgehog said he can run from one end of a globe to the other in a matter of seconds. So surely the 1,154 mile trip from Montana to San Francisco should be completed in a cum shot's duration. Unfortunately, that question is moot. Sonic doesn't know the way and apparently isn't aware of maps, road signs, or the basic layout of the land he has spent fuck knows how many years living in. This resulted in you having to sit through a tedious amount of road trip escapades that failed to take a breath of originality whilst sucking on the flaps of monotony. The development process was not smooth sailing through calm seas. When the very first trailer dropped, it received a tremendous amount of negative reception from the fan base because the title character looked like the worst example of therianthropy to have ever graced the pages of history. Shortly after the reaction, it was announced that Sonic was to be redesigned closer to his traditional image. Credit where it's due, the makeover was a dramatic improvement on their original depiction. Side note, I went for a more Ashima-esque Sonic in my interpretation of the character because I simply didn't want to animate the movie's version, but despite the upgrades they made, their new Hedgehog still lacked features associated with the look we are familiar with, to the disappointment of SEGA themselves. However, progress is progress. Well done to the film for listening to the fanbase, and a huge kudos to the animators who I imagine put in a lot of work to make the transformation possible. With that said, who the fuck in their right mind would create, pitch, and greenlight that original design? The uproar from the fanbase was entirely justified. The initial Sonic was an absolute atrocity to animation and shouldn't have existed in the first place. The redesign delayed the movie's release date by several months and added roughly $5 million to the budget, all because Hollywood took it upon itself to completely re-envision a beloved Japanese anime character, and it backfired. Again, what the fuck were they thinking? It didn't look like Sega Sonic enough for them to be able to attain cash from the nostalgia dollar, and it wouldn't be appealing to a younger audience because the first design too accurately resembled something you would find being auctioned off at a back alley and extremely unofficial furry convention to be appealing to children. But well done to the movie for putting the resources into solving a problem that was created by themselves for no apparent reason, which in their eyes was worth it because it made well over 3 times its budget at box office, so ultimately Unfortunately, and as always, the industry learned about as much as I would if I attended an anti-marijuana protest. Ben Schwartz provides the vocals coming from Sonic's mouth. Schwartz is undeniably a brilliant choice for this role. He gave us the exact tone, tempo, vocal mannerisms, and charisma one would associate with the title character. I also wouldn't be surprised at all if I found out that he was the only person involved in making this movie who genuinely gave a fuck about how much homage was being paid to Sonic's legacy. The writers unequivocally gave no fucks. Despite Schwartz's solid performance, it was still heavily tarnished by the script he had to work with. It also felt like none of the writers bothered to go into the Sonic archives so they could research his personality and bring it to the big screen. Instead, they decided to give him dickhead characteristics which, as far as my limited exposure to the Hedgehog is concerned, didn't mirror any version of his previous self. Original Film were one of the production companies that shat out this rectum ruiner. In my mind, this makes them the king of irony because the whole thing felt like a collaboration of material that had already been recycled 1,000-fold. Not one element of physical comedy or vocal gag landed because I have seen all of them in some form or another many times elsewhere, and one particular scene was shamelessly stolen from Days of Future Past. The special effects are not so special. I'd say they're on par with your average TV program you can stream on the internet. The action didn't impress me at all. That could be attributed to the PG rating or the fact that because the movie is so bland and flavourless, I couldn't give a fuck about the fate of any characters involved, even though the soundtrack tried its best to make me do so. Plus, it's fairly obvious that there's no way they were going to kill off these gold mines in the first film. Jim Carrey does his absolute best with the banal garbage that has been unjustifiably placed in front of him. Carrey brings the high level and intense energy that forged his career into the portrayal of Sonic's arch nemesis Dr. Robotnik, effortlessly owns every scene he is in and is clearly having the same kind of fun he did on set in the early 90s. Hardcore fans may not be entirely on board with how Robotnik was depicted in this movie, which I completely understand. It was quite clear to me that the movie was relying on Carrey to help get the box office at its mercy, hence why you only got to see the traditional Dr. Robotnik image briefly in the trailer so it could entice the fanbase of Sega Sonic, Sega Robotnik, and Jim Carrey into buying tickets, which, if we take a look at a previous slide, clearly worked. However, I feel that it was at the detriment of the people who paid to see old school Robotnik. Sonic is a 1 hour and 39-minute Easter egg hunt that feels like it's being hosted by a giant moth jizzing into your eyes, and the fans of Eggman would have to sit through 89 minutes of getting jizz-eyed by a particularly horny moth before getting to see anything remotely close to looking like Naoto Oshima's character design. 78 rationed seconds later, we got a summary of the plot in 16-bit Mega Drive graphics, which was actually pretty cool and undoubtedly a better version of the movie with only a fraction of the runtime. Immediately following that, we had a 40-second mid-credits scene dedicated to introducing my favourite Team Sonic Racing compadre. Now, what's interesting is that this version of Tails is practically a carbon copy of the original design, meaning that when you factor in the story behind the movie's initial attempt at Sonic, you can't help but theorise that, wait, what's this? The pubs are open? Well, fuck this noise. Mother, I'm off for a drink. Be sure to wear your armour tonight and await the long-anticipated return of Captain Kick Cunty.